episode 504 of the Soul Not For Sale podcast. And in this clip, I just want to get right to it. It's really interesting. Patrick Bet-David and Joe Rogan, they're sitting down, they're talking. I find it so interesting how Patrick Bet-David can see the whole scope of something. You know, in school, I took supply chain management, and in supply chain management, you're taught to see the smallest little bits of every product and how they get to you and how much it all costs. And you're really watching things right until it gets to the end user. It's really interesting how he kind of has the same mindset when it comes to the macro of big business and how that affects the smaller guys. And not only that he understands it, but that he's willing to speak about it. Because he's rich. He is one of the bigger guys when it comes to business. He's not a small guy, you know? He's a great podcaster and everything, but he's elite. He is a part of the elite class. There's no denying that. So in this clip, you know, aside from all the politics and all the, you know, BlackRock stuff that they're talking about, I just wanted to play this clip of how he breaks down, you know, just something as simple as minimum wage. Just something as simple as what's gone on over the pandemic and how it affected the small guys and how it really affected the big guys. It's just very interesting. And when I say small guys, big guys, I mean within business. It's very, very interesting just to see his mindset. And I really think it's something important that people need to hear. Before I do that, I got to bring you to the IamCoachColin.com, the shop, show you our newest designs. This is the Public Enemy #1 shirt, the Cricket Connoisseur, Dr. Evil incarnate, if I say so myself. This is the certified pure blood shirt for those of you who survived the pandemic, unjabbed and proud. This is the Great Resist shirt. Join the Great Resist. Do not join the Great Reset. Crickets taste horrible. Don't let them lie to you. Do not participate in Beyond Meat or cricket burgers. Believe me, they are not good for you, even though they're marketed like they are. Stick to whole foods, kids. And meat. It's fine. Like, don't worry about it. Be vegan if you want to, but don't eat crickets because they tell you to. It's just a bad road. It's a slippery, slippery slope. Anyways, IamCoachColin.com. You want 10% off? You got it. Here you go. Just put in the discount code area, I am Coach Colin. That's it. That's all you got to do. It's all one word. It's all capital letters. There's one L in the name Colin. And just so you know, everything you saw, we have it in variations of t-shirts for men and women, tank tops for men and women, and hoodies. Boom. Like you see right here. And you can find that all at IamCoachColin.com. And if you've already shopped with us before, you are much appreciated. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now let's get into the clip.
We got to kind of see what's going on with these monopolies that no one's looking at. Like, no one's looking at this stuff. And, you know, what is a monopoly? Are we really enforcing our monopoly law? Yeah, I don't know if we are. There's a reason why we have the monopoly law, so the big guy cannot bully the other guy. Right?
Right.
You know, when they pitch stuff like, we need to raise the minimum wage, the bigger companies love it when you do that. Trust me, the big companies love it when they raise minimum. Amazon loves it. Walmart loves it when you raise minimum wage. Keep saying raise minimum wage. They don't have a problem going from $13 to $15 to $20. They could care less if you keep doing that. Because they're going to raise their margins by 20% or whatever it is and make the money back on the back end. They're not dumb. You're still going to buy it. We're still going to buy it. We don't have a choice. But it's going to put that guy across the street out of business. So the more small businesses go out of business and fewer small businesses we have, the more these big companies are controlling us. Like, you know, this whole thing with banks going out of business and Chase bought a couple of them and these guys bought a couple of them. This is helping the bigger guys. Jamie Dimon's sitting there saying, oh, you know what? Let's keep raising and we have to do the responsible thing. Because the bigger guys get to buy the small community banks or the regional banks. This favors them. So this concept about, you know, the bigger guys don't want to raise the minimum wage, it's the small business owner that doesn't want to raise the minimum wage. That's the guy in Kansas who cannot afford it. So you need to leave that guy alone and you need to control New York. Like making $15 in New York, dude, you don't have a life. So I understand New York's minimum wage has got to be different. But New York's minimum wage has got nothing to do with Kansas. It's got nothing to do with Oklahoma. It's got nothing to do with North Dakota. Right? It's got nothing to do with some of these places that can't afford to have a number like that happen. But the Walmarts, the Amazons, the bigger guys are like, oh, yeah. Well, you know what, Bernie Sanders? You make a lot of sense. We're going to do the noble thing. And moving forward, Amazon, we're going to put our minimum wage at $15. That guy's working at Joey's liquor store or Joey's market across the street that's been there for 72 years, passed down in 3 generations. He goes to Joey and says, hey, listen, bro, I know you're Joey the third. I got to go work at Amazon. They're offering $15 an hour. And I'm only 18 years old. I'm only 19 years old because you're only offering me $12.20. Now that guy's going to say, okay, I'll go to $15 as well. Totally get it, but that guy gives a richer benefit. Now he has to raise the prices. Now families go to Amazon. So capitalism, if we eliminate a lot of these small business owners, man, it's a very problematic issue. They get to raise the prices whatever they want to raise it to.
Well, we saw a lot of that during COVID, right? I mean, that's what benefited people during the lockdowns. Who benefited? The large businesses. Mm-hmm. Large businesses that were labeled as essential, while small businesses were forced to stay shut, which was wild.
How many restaurants shut down?
It was in Los Angeles at one point in time was more than 70%.
Think about most restaurants have a story. You know, you go to a restaurant, you know, you're like, so how'd you guys start this place?
Right.
How many of these guys do you have? Oh, we have 3 of them. How did it get started? Mm-hmm. Guy named, you know, Louis started it 48 years ago, and his son did this, and now his, you know, grandson is running it. Mm-hmm. It's freaking awesome. It's the American dream, bro. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Son is not making $200,000 a year, and he's doing okay for himself, and restaurant is his. Boom. 48 years, gone. The average person is like, yeah, it's just a restaurant. It's not a big deal. That family's legacy, that dad busted his ass in the 60s or the 70s to pass this down to his son and his grandson, that guy's dream is done. You know how we go to funerals and you're sitting there saying, oh, man, that guy's crying pretty bad. You know, he lost his mom, man. I don't want to go through this. One day, oh, look at that guy. He lost his wife or he did this. You cry, right? It is just as emotional to me when a small business that's ran by a regular family, they've kept it in. They've made their own money. They didn't rely on the government. They didn't ask for handouts. They busted their asses. Restaurant is a tough business. You lost your business. That's a funeral. That's a lot of funerals that we had. All those stories, all the going to bed, you're laying next to your wife, and you're saying, babe, you know what I'm watching about Gary? What, babe? I think he's going to run the restaurant one day. And wife says, babe, I feel it as well. I'm so happy. It's going to be so great. That's Gary. That's the father and the mother's dream that put so much time into it. In our community, there's a family. They bought 3 houses, right? And the mom and dad started this medical company, and they grew it. They got 7,000 employees today. And now both sons are living next to them. Each son has 4 kids. And you go into their house, tradition, here's what we do Tuesdays, Mondays, da-da-da-da-da. What a great story. I look at the mom and dad, and you see mom and dad, the founders are always a little bit rougher because they're the ones that pay the price. You can always feel, you know, there's a certain dynamic to it. So, yeah, I don't know. I think, you know, to me, a Trump candidate, I really wanted DeSantis to play ball. I really was. When I read his book, I'm like, okay, this guy's going to come out and announce. Now, when he came out with his book, he didn't. I think they missed the mark. We moved to Florida because of DeSantis. This is what we moved to Florida for. You know, we were living in L.A., and I was going to move the media company to potentially new.
So, yeah, that's the clip I wanted to play. I didn't know that. I've never known that. You know, it's so funny. I was working supply chain management. I went to school for it. And I remember wanting to be in HR. And I remember thinking, I always set goals. And I remember thinking I would love to have a goal where I could get the minimum wage higher. And not knowing anything that I know about business today, and definitely not knowing what Patrick just said, and not realizing how much that can mess with certain businesses. Like maybe it's not that every place you work needs to have that minimum wage. And right now I'm just trying to think of like what the answer could be for that, because it's true. You make the minimum wage $20 an hour. There are just a bunch of businesses, the majority of businesses, because the majority are small and medium businesses, can't afford it. And then what happens from there? Right? The big guys can't afford it. The small guys go out of business, and it gives the big guys more control. And then when you say more control, it's more control over us because there's less competition for them. I did not realize that. It's very sad, especially the way he explained it. It is like a funeral. You know, I made my choices in terms of medical decisions, and I had to go and do Uber Eats because I just all of a sudden didn't have a job. And I remember before I got this great job I was doing Uber Eats. I had this great job, and then I had to go back to it because I did not want to partake in a certain procedure. And I remember seeing all the places that I remember visiting, remember having to deliver food for, just being gone and boarded up and just gone. So many places I remember just gone. And I remember the people, because you got to interact with the people, the servers and, you know, the owners. And I just remember them being just gone, one after the other, dozens of places just gone. And I guess, you know, like you think about it, it is like a funeral, because each one of those places had someone who had a dream, and then that dream got stomped out. And we as people really do kind of look at it like, you know, restaurant business, it's a hard business. And it's like, nah, like it's like the government made a decision that helped big business and diminished smaller businesses, restaurant and otherwise. That's fucked. That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, you know, we all kind of saw that the big box stores were somehow essential and all the other ones weren't. And it was like, what's up with that? That doesn't make any sense. Like, why does this little health food store have to close, but this giant, you know, Walmart or whatever grocery store, they don't have to close? It's like, I get this from there. Like, why can't I just get the stuff? You know, I like my organic fruit from the person who I know, and I can't get that now. You know? Really interesting. Really interesting. You know, I always kind of, for the past 4 years, I've had this saying where I'm like, it's an attack within. There's some kind of attack within going on. And, you know, people usually take the mindset of, it's all for money. It's just money. But it seems at times, especially when you take in, like Patrick said, all the funerals that happened because of these people and their dreams dying, you know, it seems way more nefarious, you know. It seems like it's more about control at times than it is about money. And I know those two things go hand in hand. I don't know. It seems like it's more about control at times, you know, literally taking out your competition. You know, that's what a drug dealer would do. You know, a bunch of huge, you know, players in the streets would be like, we're paying people this much. And all the smaller guys would be like, I got to go work with these guys. I got to go. And everybody else would get diminished. It's exactly what's happening with marijuana currently, right? For the most part. It's like the local guy who you always knew, who was like a black market, you know, kind of, you know, your local dealer. He's getting put out of business because the government stepped in. Well, the government's allowed bigger players to step in. Now those people are getting, you know, it's safer, it's more efficient, I'm getting paid better, benefits, I have to go and work with these people, sorry. I know that's like a weird example, but I'm just showing you that it's happening everywhere. Everywhere. So is it about money? Like, for sure, because the government gets paid from that. But it seems more about control than anything. Really interesting to think about. I've never thought about it that way. How raising the minimum wage, because what kind of, like, imagine that, like, what kind of sick game that is. You know, like, we the people need a higher wage to live. And when that wage gets brought up a bit, it puts we the people, some of us, out of business. You know? So it's like, what's the answer there? Because that makes it almost like small business owners who are just regular people, who just decided to take a chance, are pitted against the people who work for a wage, who work for an hourly wage. And that's not how it should be. There's bigger entities that are benefiting from this, that are putting this into play. And then we have to fight each other. I don't know the answer whatsoever, because I was only just confronted with this information. I didn't realize that happened to people. You always heard, I remember being in the mindset years ago where you'd hear, you know, small business owners are going to have to fire people. And I'd be like, oh, that's just a threat that they make. Oh, they're just making a threat. And I can't believe they're doing that. They would fire people just because they have to pay them a little more. But it's like, I own a couple businesses now. And it's like, yeah, if all of a sudden you get an out of nowhere expense that's just going to be ongoing. It changes everything for you. And you do have to weigh whether or not you're going to keep that expense or you're going to get rid of it. Sad setup we have. And I don't think capitalism is to blame, because when you blame capitalism, you're not blaming anybody. You're just blaming a word. It's just a system. But it's like, who benefits from that the most? Who pushes it the most? Who turns it up? Who redlines that system the most? That's who you'd have to blame. You'd have to pick that group and people out, and you'd have to point at them more than anything. Really interesting. All right, guys, like the video and let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about that. If you're a business owner, definitely if you're a business owner, let me know what you think. If you've had to hire people, let me know what you think about that whole thing. Other than that, I'm out. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't already. Episode 504. Let's go.